On a chilly October evening in suburban Columbus, a scream pierced the quiet residential streets of German Village. Among the rows of weathered Victorian homes, the sound of a child crying echoed from a two-story white house. Sophie. Linda Mitchell rushed into her granddaughter's room. On the bed, 5-year-old Sophie was curled up, trembling. Her unicorn-patterned comforter in soft pink was damp with sweat, her small body shaking convulsively. In the moonlight, the little girl's face was as pale as wax. "It's all right, sweetheart. Grandma's here." Linda gently embraced her granddaughter. At 64, she had spent 15 years as a pediatric nurse at Nationwide Children's Hospital, caring for countless children. That experience guided her actions now. While rubbing Sophie's back with warm hands, she checked her pulse and temperature, old habits from her nursing days still second nature. "Did you have a scary dream?" Sophie shook her head. Her eyes seemed to be staring at something far away, her tiny hands still trembling. "Did something frighten you? Did someone do something to you?" Sophie shook her head again, but there was something off about the gesture. Linda remembered what her husband John, who had been a police officer before his death in a car accident 3 years ago, used to say, "People shake their heads more than necessary when they're lying." The next morning, when her daughter Rachel returned from her night shift, Linda reported the previous night's events. Rachel worked as a medical administrator at OSU Medical Center, managing 3 night shifts a week from 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. During these times, it had become routine for Linda to look after her granddaughter. "Sophie's been acting strange lately," Linda carefully began while brewing coffee in the kitchen. "Mom, it's probably stress from my marriage. Children are sensitive." Rachel answered with a tired expression. Taking her Starbucks takeout cup, she let out a deep sigh. Rachel had divorced her previous husband 2 years ago and had just married Tom Walker, an IT department manager at JP Morgan, 6 months earlier. But Sophie's different lately. She used to love drawing, but now she suddenly refuses. "I've been busy with work and haven't been able to give her much attention. There's a chance for promotion. I can't miss this opportunity." That afternoon, Linda noticed something alarming about Sophie. There was an unusual bruise on her right arm. The circular mark looked as if someone had grabbed her forcefully. "How did this happen?" "I fell down." Sophie wouldn't meet her eyes. Her small body trembled slightly. Since then, Linda began observing her granddaughter more carefully. She suddenly refused to draw pictures, which she used to do daily. At night, she would overreact to sounds and was extremely afraid of the dark. Most concerning was how she would tense up at the sound of Tom's luxury Audi A6 engine. On their way back from Target, Sophie spoke quietly in the car. "Grandma, please don't tell Mommy." When Linda heard those words, a heavy shadow fell over her heart. She thought of her husband, lost 3 years ago. If he were still here as a Columbus police officer, how would he view this situation? Her experience working in pediatrics at Nationwide Children's Hospital confirmed her intuition. This wasn't just a child's capricious change in behavior. Something serious was happening within this family. One Sunday, after service at First Community Church, Linda took out her smartphone in the car. With trembling fingers, she dialed a number she had found in old notes. Dr. Anderson. This is Linda Mitchell. I need to discuss something about my granddaughter. A gentle female voice answered on the other end. Mrs. Mitchell, would tomorrow at 2 p.m. work for you? As the appointment was set, tears welled up in Linda's eyes. The autumn twilight was settling over the quiet residential streets of German Village. The maple trees had turned blood red with fall colors. In the waiting room at Nationwide Children's Hospital, Linda nervously wrung her hands in her lap. Beside her, Sophie silently flipped through an old magazine. At 2 p.m. on a weekday, several parents and children occupied the pediatric waiting area. Baby cries, coughing children, worried mothers checking their phones. For 15 years, she had been the one reassuring families in this hospital's pediatric ward. Now she sat on the other side. The sound of the examination room door opening quickened Linda's heartbeat. The familiar smell of disinfectant brought back memories of her former colleagues. Hello, Sophie. Dr. Anderson greeted Sophie with a warm smile. The doctor, in her mid-40s, wore a light blue blouse under her white coat, with a stethoscope adorned with a small unicorn charm around her neck. Her demeanor was gentle, creating an atmosphere that put children at ease. The walls were covered with children's drawings. You came with your grandmother today, didn't you? Sophie nodded slightly. Sitting on the examination table, she looked like a delicate flower about to break. She clutched a purple unicorn plush tightly on the white examination table. Would you like to talk while we play together? The doctor took out dolls from a shelf, family dolls representing a father, mother, and child. Linda didn't miss how Sophie's expression momentarily tensed. Can you show me your family using these dolls? Sophie hesitantly reached for the dolls. She gently stroked the mother doll and placed the child doll close to it. Then she put the father doll as far away as possible. Is Daddy far away? Sophie's small body trembled. She let go of the dolls and hugged her unicorn plush tightly. Dr. Anderson tried a different approach with a gentle smile. Do you like drawing? For the first time, Sophie's eyes lit up slightly. But they quickly darkened again. I used to like it. 15 minutes into the examination, Linda could clearly see Dr. Anderson's expression gradually clouding over. It was obvious that the doctor's intuition, backed by over 20 years of pediatric experience, had detected something. Dr. Anderson gently told Sophie to go play at the drawing corner, and called Linda to a corner of the examination room. Mrs. Mitchell, these aren't ordinary nightmares. The silence in the examination room amplified the weight of those words. Outside the window, children could be seen playing in the hospital courtyard. That scene felt even more painful at this moment. I've been examining children at this hospital for 20 years. Unfortunately, I've seen many abuse cases. Children sometimes send messages that adults can't see. Many abused children cannot directly ask for help with words. Instead, they send unconscious SOS signals through their drawings and changes in behavior. Dr. Anderson pulled a file from her desk drawer. While turning the pages, she continued her explanation in a quiet but firm tone. This is a checklist of behavioral patterns commonly seen in abused children. Night terrors, fear responses to specific adults, excessive vigilance toward physical contact, and sudden changes in personality or habits. Sophie shows almost all of these signs. I'm particularly concerned about her reaction to the family dolls. Linda's throat went dry. She gripped her jacket sleeve tightly to hide her trembling hands. The doctor continued. Check her room immediately. There will likely be important signs from her there. Children often leave some form of record in their rooms. Diary drawings, hidden letters, sometimes behind walls. A 7-year-old girl I treated once kept writing a diary in tiny letters on the wall behind her closet. Linda nodded slightly at the doctor's words. Even with 15 years of nursing experience, it was difficult to make objective judgments when it came to her own family. She vividly remembered those times in the emergency room, when children were brought in with clear signs of abuse. Yet families desperately denied it, and children maintained their silence. I'll also contact Child Protective Services, though at this stage it will be a preliminary report. We need concrete evidence. Dr. Anderson added quietly while writing something in her notepad. Mrs. Mitchell, you made the right decision as both a nurse and a grandmother. But from here on is crucial. If the suspicion of abuse is real, we need to collect and document evidence. Record everything in detail: dates, times, locations, circumstances. And take this. The doctor handed over a business card. On the back was a handwritten emergency contact number. Call me anytime, 24 hours a day. Don't hesitate, especially if you feel it's urgent. That evening, Linda carefully began searching her granddaughter's room. Cheerful pictures from before still hung on the walls: unicorns, rainbows, smiling family. But recent works were nowhere to be found. In the back of the closet, she found a picture diary. Her hands trembled as she turned the pages. There were drawings of a black shadow-like figure with Sophie, with childish writing saying, "Scary things happen when mommy is at work." The next pages contained more disturbing pictures. A room filled with dark colors. Herself crying. And a large shadow. Dates were written in the corners of each page, corresponding to when Tom had joined the family. Events flashed through Linda's mind like a movie reel: the bruises, fear of darkness, flinching at Tom's car sound, the plea, "Don't tell mommy." All the pieces connected to form a terrifying truth. Outside, twilight deepened as street lights began to illuminate one by one. In the distance, church bells rang 6 o'clock. Linda steeled her resolve. As a nurse, as a grandmother, and above all, as a human being, she knew what she had to do. Linda uncovered Tom's past. She found his ex-wife's sister on Facebook and met her at Starbucks in Easton Town Center. On a weekday afternoon, they chose a corner table in the busy cafe. My sister was mentally cornered by Tom and couldn't ask anyone for help until the end. She began speaking with a trembling voice. While Tom appeared to be an ideal husband on the surface, he was like a different person at home. He drove around in a luxury Audi A6, dressed in Brooks Brothers suits, and played the role of an exemplary husband at church, but Tom was a perfectionist who took out his work stress at home. After learning he was the cause of their infertility, he became especially violent. Linda's investigation continued. She confirmed Rachel's night shift schedule at OSU Medical Center and identified the times Tom was alone with Sophie. Regular reports came from Mrs. Wilson. She began extremely avoiding play with other children. Her body tensed when male teachers approached. Her drawing pad contained only black and gray pictures. She increasingly complained of illness as afternoon pickup time approached. She frequently escaped to the nurse's office claiming stomach aches. She spent outdoor playtime alone in corners. She digitized all records and backed them up in multiple locations. One USB drive was entrusted to a trusted pastor at First Community Church, another was placed in a safe, and the last was given to a former nursing colleague. Then one evening, as Linda parked her car in front of Rachel's house after shopping at Kroger, a scream echoed from the second-floor window in the twilight. Her heart raced. Instinct told her to go now. Linda immediately activated her voice memo app. The front door was unlocked. Inside, she heard a familiar sound, the sound of a leather belt cutting through the air. She had seen its traces many times in the emergency room. Why can't you just listen? I'm sorry, it hurts. Screams and the sound of things falling came from upstairs. Linda rushed up the stairs. One step, then another. Her legs trembled. Her heart pounded. She hesitated for a moment at Sophie's door, but the crying from inside drove away that hesitation. When she opened the door, she found Tom with a calm expression and Sophie trembling against the wall. Fresh bruises on her arms. Her purple unicorn plush lay fallen on the floor. Linda, we're in the middle of discipline. Tom's voice was calm as usual, but his eyes told a different story. In that moment, something changed decisively within Linda. No more evidence was needed. All hesitation vanished. The regret of past oversights as a nurse now drove her forward. After returning home, she made 3 calls: the Child Protective Services hotline, Dr. Anderson's emergency number, and her husband's former colleague at the police department. Her voice trembled, but her determination was firm. This is my request. We need an emergency protection order. Outside the window, the autumn night wind rustled the red maple leaves. The street lights of German Village illuminated one by one. Linda gazed at her late husband's photo. In the silver frame, John smiled gently in his uniform. John, I'll protect our granddaughter. Just like you would have. Before dawn in German Village. Through the morning mist, police sirens broke the silence. Columbus Police Department, emergency DV case. Arriving on scene. Linda welcomed Dr. Anderson and Child Protective Services social worker Jessica Mills in her living room. John's police badge gleamed quietly above the fireplace. All the collected evidence lay spread across the table. Voice recordings, photographic documentation of bruises, kindergarten reports, and her picture diary. All arranged chronologically. Linda's voice was steady. Her 15 years of nursing experience served her well in this moment. She couldn't get emotional. She had to explain the evidence methodically. Tom Walker has a history of domestic violence. His ex-wife Jennifer Dobson took her own life, unable to endure his violence. I have testimony from Jennifer's sister. Dr. Anderson nodded quietly while looking through the photos. Outside, police sirens approached. It's a typical pattern. Successful in society, playing the role of an ideal stepfather on the surface. But at home, last night's incident was the decisive factor. Linda pressed play on the voice memo. Sophie's screams and Tom's angry voice filled the room. At 6 a.m., police arrived at Rachel's house. 4 patrol cars converged on the quiet residential street. Curious eyes peered from neighboring windows. A housewife returning from Kroger stopped to watch, phone in hand. "Tom Walker. This is the police. Open the door." No response. As officers prepared to breach the entrance, the door opened from inside. "This is some mistake." His Brooks Brothers suit was disheveled, his usual composure lost. His luxury Audi A6 gleamed in the morning sun. "Tom Walker, you're under arrest for domestic violence and child abuse." As he was handcuffed, he continued desperately trying to explain. "This is a misunderstanding. Discipline is a parent's right. I only wanted what was best for her." But no one listened to his words. As he was pushed into the patrol car, neighbors filmed with their phones. The next day, social media would expose another face of the successful JP Morgan manager. Rachel, upon learning all the facts, was deeply shaken. She collapsed onto the kitchen floor. "Why didn't I notice? What a terrible mother I am. I couldn't protect Sophie." Linda held her daughter tightly. While offering her warm coffee, she said, "It's not your fault. Everyone was deceived. But things will be different now. We'll protect Sophie." As dawn broke, mother and daughter were moved to a local DV victim support center. A counselor from Columbus Area Integrated Health Services was assigned to them. Recovery from trauma takes time. But light will surely come. Let's walk this path together, one step at a time. The first few weeks were difficult. Sophie had nightmares, and Rachel was tormented by guilt. But gradually, changes began to appear. At First Community Church's support group, they met other mothers and children with similar experiences. Every Tuesday night in the church basement, they slowly opened their hearts. At Columbus Montessori Education Center, teachers, led by Mrs. Wilson, watched over them warmly. Classmates welcomed Sophie back from her break with natural smiles. One afternoon, Sophie exclaimed, "Grandma, look," presenting a drawing. A purple unicorn, rainbow, and smiling family. The dark colors were gone. New pictures proudly decorated her classroom walls. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Linda embraced her granddaughter. Outside the window, spring sunlight was beginning to shine. 3 months later, Tom Walker was found guilty in court. Defendant Tom Walker, for the crimes of domestic violence and child abuse, I sentence you to 7 years in prison. The courtroom fell silent. Tears glistened in Linda's eyes as she held Rachel's hand. After the verdict, Rachel moved to a new apartment. Not far from German Village, it was filled with bright sunlight. Sophie's drawings decorated the walls, and pink curtains swayed by the windows. On weekends, the aroma of Linda's traditional apple pie wafted through the kitchen. Sophie began drawing again. She now looked forward to her weekly counseling, calling it chat time. Linda gazed at her husband's photo, thinking, "Watch over us, John." "We're going to be all right." The regret of overlooking abuse during her pediatric ward days still lingered in her heart. But this time was different. Her experience as a nurse and love as a grandmother had saved a precious life. Outside the window, spring winds scattered cherry blossoms through the air, heralding the beginning of a new